Sorry, let me start the recording. Yeah. So when we want to send out a notification from within an instance, for example, a composite is deployed to SO infrastructure and we invoke the composite. When we say invoking the composite, it's what we mean is we invoke the service offered by the composite. So when we invoke the service offered by the composite, we know an instance gets created. So the instance basically calls a series of services, one after the other. During these calls, there may be a scenario where the instance wants to send out some kind of alert message, some kind of notification, some kind of information. It can be anything. It can be anything. So when such a requirement is there by instance, instead of writing the code within the instance itself, we are going to use the user messaging services offered by the server infrastructure. So server gives you an ability to send out notifications, or the user messaging services within server gives the ability to send out the notification. Means you don't have to worry about the code. How should I connect to backend server, or how should I connect to emails? This is pretty much similar to what a data source does in Weblogic. Data source basically relieves an application from the worry of how to connect to a database. In a Weblogic environment, if an application requires a connection to the database, the application need not worry, how should I connect to the database? What are the usernames, password? How should I manage those connections? What happens if something goes wrong with the connection? What should I do? Those things need not be worried by the application. They're all taken care by the data source. The same way here, if an instance wants to send out an email notification, it does not have to worry about, okay, which Smdp server I have to connect to. Where should I, send my message? What will happen if, the email ID is wrong? How many times should I retry resending it? All those things need not be worried by the instance. They will be taken care by what is called our user messaging services. So the developer can pretty much use the JDeveloper. Just say that, okay, this is a message, I want to send it to this address. That's it. Other than that, how you're going to send it, which server we're going to connect, the developer need not worry. So the instance, if you look at this diagram, on the left side, you're looking at instances. These are the instances running on your SO infrastructure. Now, when these instances want to send out a notification, they will usually send it out using a gateway, like email provider. Like for example, if we want to send out a notification, we will be using Microsoft Exchange server in your offices. And same if this instance wants to send out a notification, there is a slight disturbance somewhere. Is it from me? Okay, I'll try to fix it. So when these instances want to send out notification, they ideally need to connect to this gateway. Any kind of notification. You got lots of types of notifications we can send out. We can send out email-based notifications. You can send out SMSs as alert messages. You can send chat messages like Gtalk, Yahoo Messenger, Facebook chat, all those kind of messages. So in a company you are using probably Microsoft or this Office Communicator, or a lot of people also use a lot of kind of tools. Yesterday I went to that some other training, they were using something like IP Messenger. It's a LAN based communication tool. That was pretty good. most of us will be using MS Office Communicator. That's what we use. Then you have voice XML. It's like you want to send out a notification, or you want to get a physical call if something goes wrong. Then there is a proxy also, we will come there. So there are lots of types of notifications we may want to send out when something happens in the instance. For example, if you take the eBay instance that we always talk about, if the delivery is done, we want to send out an email to the end user that okay, you received this item, please log into the website and give us your update. Now that's part of the instance step-by-step process itself. That's an email card. So here the instance need not worry about how to send out that notification. To do that, it will be using the infrastructure that we are seeing here. In the infrastructure, you are seeing the main thing is UMS server, which is the one that will be taking care of connecting to the external gateway, sending it. But to connect to the UMS server itself, the instances are going to use the adapters. So adapter is a rare file that lets an instance connect to a UMS server. And inside the UMS server, you have this architecture. We'll see this architecture, what it is. Then the UMS server lets you connect to a gateway. The gateway is the one that sends out any kind of notification. Depending on what type of notification we want to send out, we will be configuring the corresponding gateway. Now let's see a little bit in depth into UMS server. I'll come back to this. Why EMS? This is what UMS is. This is one block that I'm talking about. See this thing? The UMS server previous sheet. This block. Hold on just a minute. Let me use zoom it. That's it. Downloads. So see this one. This is the UMS server. This is the UMS server we are talking about. These are the instances. Now the instances will connect to the UMS server using the gateway. Now the UMS server itself has an internal architecture. We don't really, we'll never really be going into that. You never would need that. But this is the architecture inside the UMS server. These are the drivers that will let you connect to external gateways. This is an SMTP driver or email driver. SMTP is Simple Mail Transfer Protocol. We'll see about the protocols in just a moment. So we have a driver to connect to a corresponding gateway. Now here you are actually going to have a gateway here. So this is going to be email gateway, like that. Then there is going to be a SMS gateway. Then there's going to be a Xmpp gateway for internet messaging. Then there is going to be a voicemail, means for sending out voice-based automation messages. Then there is going to be a proxy gateway. Proxy gateway you will use usually a gateway. Gateway is something like, let's say, payment gateway. If you are purchasing something on eBay, when you say pay now, you get connected to a gateway that will process your credit card. It will validate it. So what a gateway is doing there? Can you tell me what a gateway is doing there?
Hello.
Yeah.
Yeah, hi sir. This is Kalyan. Actually, it sends to the third-party credit card authorized companies so that they can get back the validated information from them?
So gateway is something, usually checks whether the external system is available or not. It processes your information. It takes your information, process it, then tries to do something with that information. So gateway is basically entry into something else,
Okay.
isn't it?
I
Now
see.
if I say email gateway, what I mean is I'll give my message to a server or a software called gateway software. The guy is supposed, or that software is supposed to check whether my email ID is proper or not, whether the message that I'm sending is proper or not, and then try to send it to the email that I have given. So let's say, for example, if you are saying you want to send it to weblogic.anil@gmail.com, you are connecting, let's say, from a different email provider like Yahoo, kalyan@yahoo.com. If you say, now the yahoo.com is the gateway. What it does is it first checks, okay, what is the to address? Okay, it's supposed to go to weblogic.anil@gmail.com. So it will first check whether there is a domain called gmail.com or not. Now once it checked, it will contact the SMTP server of Gmail. It checks, okay, we want to send out a notification, we want to send out an email to weblogic.anil. This is the message. Now the Gmail SMTP server will respond back saying, okay, give us the message, or this my email ID does not exist, or anything. In that case, your gateway was the Yahoo server, or Yahoo mail server was your gateway. So a gateway basically takes your message, validates it, and it processes so that it can be sent out, or it can talk to another software. That's what a gateway does. The best example is a payment gateway. Now in the payment gateway case, let's say you are using one kind of Citibank credit card. We are not connecting to Citibank website directly. Citibank itself does not have anything to do with at that point of time. So there is something called a software called a gateway software. The gateway software can be anybody's, any company provided software. Usually you will see in India, if you see, the gateways are, especially ICICI Bank, there is a gateway. Citibank, there is a very good gateway. HDFC Bank provides a gateway. Axis Bank provides a gateway. These are the four major gateways. You are using anybody's card, you have to go through these gateways. They will validate your card. They will check your, they will talk to the actual bank or Visa, and they will see whether you have enough balance or not, or your credit is available or not. Then they say yes or no to your transaction. So a gateway processes your data. That's what a gateway is. All right, excellent. Now here, just like a payment gateway, you have lots of types of gateways to do a lot of types of things. Smdp Gateway, that's for sending emails. If you see the last slide, we are looking at two different things. See this one. There are boxes here. These are inside the UMS server. We will be talking about them later, but currently we are talking about a gateway which is outside our environment. The gateway is not something that we have inside our server. So we will be talking to one of an external elements called email server, which is usually SMTP. Same way SMS, Xmpp, voice XML, proxy. These are, now a proxy gateway here is, now a lot of times an instance when wants to send out a notification, one way is to use one of these things directly. These gateways send out notification, but sometimes we may also want not to directly use the gateways connected to our SOA. Let's say there is another somewhere else SOA infrastructure. There is a UMS server on that SOA infrastructure. We want to send it through that UMS server, which means the one that I'm using here, my UMS server should connect to another UMS server which is available here on the right side. So I have to connect first to this. I have to connect first to this, and then to this. So the gateway I'm using becomes a proxy here in this case. This one becomes a proxy because I'm not directly sending a notification through the server that I'm connected to. I means the instance. So the instance is not directly using any of these top 4 gateways. Instead, there is the similar setup somewhere else through that setup. Now this will be used especially if you have large SOA servers, large number of SOA servers. Now if you have large number of SOA servers, instead of configuring gateways at every server, you will simply configure a proxy gateway, and finally there is one SOA server that will send out to the external world. Now if you see this architecture, I have drawn gateways on the right side, and then there are also boxes inside the UMS server. This thing. Now these boxes are actually drivers. Drivers means this box will have all the information need to be connected to the external gateway. Means what is the host of the gateway, what is the port number of the gateway, what's the username to connect there, what's the password. All that information is stored in the driver. Now obviously for each type of gateway you have one driver, and it's the driver that manages the connection to the gateway. For example, managing the connection means, let's say we want to send out the notification. Assume the gateway itself is down. What are we going to do? Are we going to retry it? Are we going to abort it? Or if we have retried, let's say how many times we're going to retry. What am I supposed to do if the gateway says the username password is wrong? So that kind of connectivity to the external gateway is managed by the driver. So the driver knows the language of the gateway. How should I talk to the gateway? What language I should talk to the gateway? How should I deliver the message? How many times I should retry? All those things are configured in driver. So you have drivers for all the 4 types or 5 types. So there is an email driver, SMS driver, there is a Xmpp, which is for internet messaging, chat messaging. Then there is a voice XML for voice-based calling outs. Then there is a proxy driver. These are the drivers that I was showing in the previous one. You see, this is inside the UMS server. Just next to these boxes is what you have the gateways. These are the gateways. Each of these gateways, the driver let you connect. Here. Alright. So now apart from the drivers, you also got a small buffering mechanism inside the UMS server. Instances, when they send out notifications, all the messages will be stored in an inbound queue. The UMS server will process the incoming messages. It will deliver it to the corresponding driver. But even not to choke up the drivers, there is a buffering mechanism on the outgoing queue also. From this queue, the messages will be picked up by the corresponding drivers. Alright, this is inside of the UMS server. These queues are already created when you have created a server domain. Now, so when we start the server, we actually bring up this entire setup. Now to connect to this setup, or for an instance to put a message in this JMS queue, it has to use what is called an adapter. This is what you looked at. This is an adapter, a RAR file. So this RAR file has to be deployed. Now once this RAR file is deployed, the instance will be able to communicate with the UMS server, put the messages into the buffer, the incoming buffer here. This is the actual UMS server. It takes your message, sees where it should send it to. This is the outbound queue. It will be sent to the corresponding driver. The driver has information about the gateway. It will send it to the gateway like this. and the gateway will send it to the external world, wherever you want to send it out. That's the process that's happening here. Now, as an administrator, your job is to configure the Ums adapter. This you have to configure. This entire thing. Then you have to configure all the drivers, which means you should have the information of the gateway, put that information into the driver. That's what you're going to do. Everything else is ready. Now, before we do that, the instances should know how to connect to the adapter. So we're going to do this entire setup in a couple of steps. But before we go there, let me just go through the doc that we have, why we are using the entire thing. Then we'll go into the configuration part. I'll quickly go through that one. These points, we have already discussed these points. Now this is why we need Ums. When an instance wants to send a notification or any kind of alert, they can use out-of-box messaging system. It's already available. The instance does not have to worry about how to connect to the external system. What's the username, password? That's headache of the SOA. The instance simply says what type of message and what is the message. That's it. And do not worry about how to send it or what to do if the sending fails. That will be taken care by the user messaging services part or Ums server part of SOA. Obviously, that's what we're talking about. Composite need not worry about how to send an email or an SMS or chat message or make an automated phone call. It will be taken care by the Ums system. The third point here, instances, they simply connect to the Ums server and give the message. That's it. The message delivery responsibility is taken up by the Ums. It's the driver who takes care of delivering the message. It guarantees the delivery if the gateway is responding. Now, why we need Ums is because of these things. These are the technical reasons. We don't want to code sending related information in the composite. So we want to separate the implementation of notification from the composite code. That's what Ums does. It takes care of buffering messages and configuring drivers of various protocols. All this driver configuration will be done outside a composite. The composite itself need not worry about the implementation or connections to the external world. The message retry, this is what we were talking about. Should I retry if the gateway is not available? Or should I redelivery? How to handle the delivery failures? All of them will be taken care by the Ums server. Now, this is also another point. If the gateway itself changes, it will not have any impact on the composite coding. But if we do the coding inside the composite, every time a gateway changes, it will directly impact. Let's say currently I am using Gmail gateway, and if the Gmail gateway I did not like because it's blocking all my messages saying that it's spam. Some gateways are strict, some gateways are loose in way of sending messages. Let's say if you have you're trying to send an email message. For example, your office emails, office servers of all our Exchange servers, very strict. They implement very strict restrictions. For example, anything, any word, they go through the content that you are sending, and if they match any of the restrictions, it will not be sent out. Like let's say you put in any obscene words in it, then it's not going to send out that notification. Anything like porn or abuse or sex, anything you put it detects that the message as like spam or malware kind of thing. Let's say you attach a .exe file, your SMTP server says this is a possible virus. You're not expected to send out .exe files. Those are usually malwares. So SMTP servers are, some servers are strict, some servers are loose in their way of interpreting the message. Now, if you don't want one SMTP server, you may want to switch to another SMTP server. In that case, because of the Ums, the switching does not have any direct impact on the instance. Alright, that's, you can change the gateways, you can change the configuration simply in the drivers. This is what is our internal structure of UMS. Now all that you will be doing is configuring the drivers, and you will be deploying the adapter. So there is one thing here. Then any driver that you want, you will be deploying. We will see obviously the deployment of the UMS configuration in our implementation. Apart from that, we will also see two types of gateway configuration. We will see email gateway configuration. We'll also see chat message type gateway configuration. Other than that, we won't have any other infrastructure to check the SMS gateway and voicemail. They are pretty much same. Once you know these two, the other you will be able to configure. Now before we go in there, let's look at the protocols that I am talking about. The gateway protocols and how what type of protocols these notifications are used. If it is email, you will be using a simple mail transfer protocol and obviously an Smdp gateway. Email works on Smdp protocol, simple mail transfer protocol. So the protocol says what should be the message structure. It's like, you should have a from address, you should have a to address, you should have a subject, there should be a body. That's what the Smdp protocol says. It gives the structure. Then SMS. It is actually based on Xmpp protocol, which is called short message peer-to-peer protocol. You don't have to remember the expansions of these protocols, but if you do, it's good. Then there is a internet messaging chart. This is usually done by Xmpp protocols, the extensible markup and presence protocol. Earlier, this Xmpp was called Jabber protocol, Jabber. So you will come across this word Jabber also. When you come across this word Jabber, so it actually means internet messaging. So basically what happens is a Jabber protocol, or let's for example Google Talk. You are connected to Gtalk, I am connected to Gtalk. There is a Gtalk server like this. The Gtalk server, you use Jabber in Office, excellent. So that's basically internet messaging. There is a Jabber server somewhere, so in your office. So this is Xmpp. So what we have here is we are connected. You are connected here, I am connected here. The Jabber server lets us talk to each other like this. When I send out, when I put something in, the Jabber server takes it to your instance session. When you put something in, the Jabber server takes it to my session. It's like this all done by the Xmpp protocol. And the chart that we are using here, it actually uses the Xmpp of the GoToMeeting, this thing. And that's your protocol for internet messaging. So all charts services use the same Xmpp protocol. Gtalk, Yahoo Messenger, Skype, anything you take. Apart from this, then a final voice XML is another protocol. It's for making automated phone calls. Like, let's say a notification we want to send out, your item delivered, but instead of sending an SMS, we want to make a call to the mobile number that's given and deliver the automated message. This is usually used for highly critical alerts. Like for example, our cloud server. We have our cloud server, right? So there is a alert messaging on the cloud server. If the cloud server goes down, means there is a website. The website simply has a tool that pings the cloud server. If the ping has failed, the website is expected to give me a call. So I get a call when the cloud server goes down. The reason why I wanted a call is I miss a lot of SMSs. Obviously, I cannot always keep look at my email when you're outside, when you're in office. I can't keep looking at emails. So SMS is also something that I miss sometimes. So a call is something that I never miss. When I get a call, I know, okay, who is calling. So when if I'm getting a call as an alert, so that's good. So I know immediately that it's down and I can do something about it. So voice XML also, some people use it for especially very critical alerts, notifications kind of thing. Now if you want to get that automated call, you will be using the voice XML protocol. And finally, then there is a proxy. Now each of these protocols have their corresponding drivers. Email driver is nothing but Smdp driver. Then you have SMS, IM, voice XML. Then there is additional driver. It will connect to an external UMS server. Instead of connecting to a gateway, you will connect to an external UMS server. That UMS server will deliver the message. Now these are the steps that we're going to perform for UMS configuration. These are pretty, I've simplified it to the simplistic way of kind of thing. So UMS configuration is sometimes it can be confusing, but these are the actual steps you will be doing. All this time I was telling you about this step. You deploy the UMS adapter, you configure the required driver. These are the two steps I was telling you about. What I did not tell you about is the first step. The first step, we said the instance will use the deployed UMS adapter, and the driver that we have configured in the third step will contact the gateway. That's what I said. Now, but for the instance to talk to that UMS server using the adapter, it requires certain jar files, and that's what we are doing in step 1. We're going to educate a composite about how to send the notification. Means we're going to teach it. Now the way we teach it is we simply give a jar file to it. There are certain jar files. We give those jar files to the composites. Once we give those jar files to the composites know, okay, this is how I send a message. They will use the composite. They will connect to the adapter. The adapter lets you connect to the UMS server, which has internally the drivers. So from a configuration perspective, this is what you will be doing. First, you will be giving the jar files to the composites, or you will be giving the jar files to the Weblogic server. Second thing, you will deploy this adapter, UMS adapter.rar file. Third thing, you will configure the drivers. That's it. Now let's go ahead and configure it. So these are the steps I'm going to follow. These 4 steps. Keep a watch on these 4 steps in your midterm. Let's try to understand it. It's going to be easy if you do it now itself. So let me get to our cloud server, start my server infrastructure, then try to do these things. So I'm going to connect to our cloud server. Now by the way, the password for the cloud server has changed. This is the password. So I'm going to start the database first and then the servers. Setup. Start the listener. So the listener is up. Let's start our source. Oracle middleware, choose a project, domains, and also domain. Start admin. When we start DB, why wouldn't it automatically listen? Is it same as Weblogic managed servers? Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know why it's not structured like that. It won't listen like that. Database is not designed to do that, so a database simply executes what was given to it. So you need a listener always. A listener is the representative of Oracle. Let's say the database is kind of it's behind the walls. It's doing all the heavy work, but there is somebody who is taking the requests, front desk. So you are the boss and you have a receptionist. Why do you have a receptionist? You can't do it on your own. No, I don't want to do it on my own. That's the structure they have. So a database always requires a listener. So our admin is up. So let's start the source.
Hello.
Yes.
So, sir, like if a listener is not up, database will not run. Is that the case?
No, it will run, but you won't be able to connect to it.
Okay. So as you said, like an example, so without the receptionist, we can't reach the boss, right?
That's right. He will be there. He will be doing his work, but he simply cannot talk to him. That's it.
So that means like when the applications speak to database, the JDBC like data sources, it will connect to database or like to the listener.
We say database, but actually we connect to a listener. They just, simplify. We always say database, but it's the listener we connect.
Okay. So it will like respond for every request coming in.
That's right. That's right.
Okay. Okay, sir. Thanks. Yeah.
It's also take too long to come up. That's the biggest problem. Okay, let's log into the Enterprise Manager in the meantime and also into the console. So I'm going to use Opera for that. Six. This is our Enterprise Manager. So admin 123. Let's also log into the console, Weblogic console. So admin 123. Alright, console is up and also our server is up. It's listening for incoming requests. The same way the enterprise. I need to get so up the composites. I'll be able to see about the instance. This is certain instances. Nothing. Oh, the instance data is only for 24 hours. I'll come there. Okay, so we have our SOA loaded. Now what we are trying to do is execute these three steps, or three steps there actually. The fourth step is actually testing. Step 4 is test the service. Three steps are the configuration steps. The first thing, you're going to educate the composite, which means you have to add the jar files to Weblogic. Now the easiest way to add there are multiple ways of adding jar files to Weblogic. The easiest way is to put the jar files in your domain home here. This is your domain home. Put it in the lib directory here. These two jar files are, whatever jar files, if you put it here and you restart the Weblogic server, it will pick up those jar files. It will add to the class path. That will be done by Weblogic. Or another way of adding the jar files to the class path is by manually doing it. You can go into bin directory, open up this set domain env here. Alright, less this set domain env. There is a parameter called class path. Go down, you will find a class path, pre-class path, post-class path, and class path. You usually add it to post-class path. So anything that you add here to this entire line here, so you're going to add it somewhere here. That will be actually added to the end of the class path. Now this is a difficult way of doing it. So we're going to use a much simpler way, which we are going to copy it. Now what we have to copy is, there are two files we need to copy. Let me show you the file names. So I'm opening a new session here. I will go to the location of those files and I'll copy it to the lib directory of domain home. So let's go to location, students, or let's go to Oracle. Students online SOA, Oracle, middleware, user underscore projects, domains, not inside domains, sorry, here under Oracle SOA. You will have communications modules Oracle SDP client. This, you see these two jar files, SDP messaging client.jar file, SDP messaging common.jar file. These two jar files is what we're going to copy. And where we're going to copy? We're going to copy it under this location. This is our domain home, and in here you got lib. We're going to copy it here. Currently there are no files, so I'm going to copy this one. So let's go to this screen, copy file 1 and file 2 into this directory. I can copy multiple files at a time, so I copied it. So I said copy file 1, file 2 a directory. After I executed, if I do a listing here, I have both the files. So in this domain, any server we start, it will pick up these jar files, and that will be shown in the log. So when we bring up the servers, we want these two jar files to be picked up. So we will be looking at the log file and making sure these two jar files are added to the class path. I'll show you now how to validate it. So that's step 1. It's simply adding the jar files. That's it. That's your step 1. Now the second thing you have to do, deploy the Ums adapter. Now all adapters, if you see, adapter is a connector. Like a DB adapter that we have deployed yesterday is a connector. The same way, Ums adapter is also a connector. So let's go to the console. If you see under deployments, our DB adapter is this one. It's a connector. It's a resource adapter. Means it lets you connect to a database. If you click on it, you will find the file corresponding to it. This is the file corresponding. What type of file it is? It is resource archive, RAR. All RAR files are always connectors. That's one way of saying that it's a connector. If you put it, you can actually put it as a var file also, though no difference at all. But we do it using RAR. We say it RAR because we want to distinguish it. That it's a connector. It's not a regular Java program. It's a special Java program that lets you connect to something else. So the same way, Ums also has an adapter. The Ums adapter lets the instances connect to the Ums server. So you have to look into the deployments, and the Ums adapter is not deployed by default. So if you do a find here, let's say I'm doing a control F, and on the left side is where my control F is. So see this one. This is where I have my find tab. So search for Ums. You don't have any Ums. Red button here, red color. You can go through all this list of deployments. You will find certain Ums related things, but they are not adapters. See these things. These things are related to Ums. If you observe, this is actually the Ums server. These are the drivers. There is an email driver. There is an Smpp driver for SMS gateway configuration. There is a Xmpp driver for chat communication. There is a voicemail for voice. There is an extension which is a proxy driver. Now if you observe these things, the drivers, except the email driver, everything else is installed state, means the targets are not associated. Only for email driver you are seeing a target, which is means the driver is actually configured on our source server, and that's what you are seeing here on the enterprise manager. See this one. So when you target the server to a specific managed server, when you target the Ums application here, see this one. If you target this one, you will get this one. And if you target this one, you will get the second one. Like this. And when you target to multiple servers, you will have a server and a driver on all the servers. So here I'm going back to the regular stuff. We are trying to deploy the adapter. So we need a RAR file of the adapter. All the adapters are in common location. One common location, that is here. Under Oracle SOA, Oracle SOA, SOA connectors. This is the location of all the connectors. When you install Oracle SOA, these connectors always come by default. Or what we already have is a DB adapter. This was the file for DB adapter. But you have a file for Ums Adapter, but it's not deployed. And this is what we're going to deploy now. Ums Adapter.rar file. And any RAR file deployment has to happen from the console, not from the enterprise manager. So I'm going to do the regular Weblogic stuff here. Get into deployments and deploy a RAR file. The RAR file deployment is same as var or ER file, no difference at all. So I'm going to edit it. Install. Use the basic stuff. Nothing, no need to do all the fancy deployment stuff. You can use a very basic. So this is the location of the Ums adapter. This is the location. See this one, Oracle SOA connectors. Once you selected the adapter, move on to next. Next. Target the adapter to SOA server because our instances are going to be running on SOA server. The instances will need to connect or need to use the code in this RAR file. So obviously this code has to be on the same server. So your adapter is always on the location or on the server where the instances are running, which is our SOA instance, SOA server. So select that SOA server, move on to next. You can use all the default values for this one. I'm going to use all the default values. So it's deploying. Yeah, it's deployed. Now you can directly activate the changes. Let's say activate the changes. That's it. So you have deployed the adapter. Now once the adapter is deployed, your second step is done. Alright, so we have deployed it to SOA infrastructure. Now if you go back to this all steps, so we have a user messaging server already targeted to SOA and an email driver. Now what we also want is a chart driver. So let's also target the chart driver now itself. The reason why I'm doing everything at a time is we need to restart the server once the configuration is done. So we're going to restart the server after this configuration. So I'm doing everything at a time. So go into deployment. So I already have a UMS server. If you go into the targets of this UMS server, you will see SOA server. Targets. You see this one? This is SOA server, targeted to SOA server. When you start the BAM server, you will see another UMS server also. It is targeted to both servers. The same way, we have other adapter related files at the bottom. There is an email adapter which is in active state. Let's go into the targets and see the targets. Email adapter is also targeted to both the servers. Means if I start the BAM server, I will see an email driver also. Let me go and target another driver. Let's say we are trying to send Xmpp and this chart message targets. For Xmpp, the targets are not specified. The current targets are not specified. That's what it says. So we're going to change the targets using this tab. First, lock and edit. Select your composite. Change the targets. We want to target it to SOA server and BAM server also. So when we start the BAM server, From the BAM server also we'll be able to send out notifications. So I have targeted, my targets are available now. Right, if I go to deployments again, so I have everything ready. So there is an adapter that just now I haven't deployed. If you see, this is in prepared state. I need to take it to the active state. I will start it now. Then I have UMS server to send out notification, and I have certain drivers still that I need to configure. So let me do the adapter stuff first. Select the adapter, start the application so that it goes into active state. You will have this problem sometimes, this UMS adapter stopping at prepared state. So in your environment, if people complain that they are not receiving the notifications, make sure you go to this UMS adapter and see that it's active state. It's going into prepared state sometimes without notice. So now it's in active state. Now going back to the steps. So now I have copied the jar files. I'm good. I have deployed the UMS adapter and it's in active state. I have enabled the drivers. I did not configure the driver set. The first driver that I'm going to configure is email driver. The second driver that I'm going to configure is chart driver. Then we will test both the drivers later. Alright. The reason why I'm doing everything is I need to restart the server. So we want to do the restart only once. If I do email once and chat once, we'll be doing a restart twice, which is again not time taking. So I'm configuring everything. Testing we will do one after the other. So let's configure an email driver. What is a driver configuration will have? It will basically have the external server information. If you see it here, this is the driver that we are configuring. It's expected to have the gateway information here. This is what you are configuring. It's supposed to have the email gateway information. Now the protocol used is Smdp, so usually the gateways are called Smdp gateways. So I'm going to give the details of the gateway in the driver. So this is how it's done. Go into the enterprise manager, go into the corresponding driver. So we have also configured another driver here, right? We're not seeing that driver. Let's refresh the space. You should see Smpp driver, Xmpp. Yeah, see this one. We have two drivers. We are testing those two types of notifications. One is email notification, other one is chat based notification. Now let's tell about the external gateways to these drivers. So first let's tell to the email driver about the gateway it's expected to connect to. Click on that one. This is all statistics of gateway. You use the same mechanism, the drop down here. Alright. You go into email driver properties here. Select the email driver properties. And this is where you configure the email driver. You don't have to worry about all this stuff at the top, the common configuration, except sender and default sender. If you want to make a kind of from address, you can put your from address here. And some SMTP servers will stop the messages if there are no from address. So you can put a from address here. Now the important stuff here is about the SMTP server itself. Now if you see this one, mailing uses two types of protocols, IMAP and POP3. I'm sure all of you are aware of this one. Anybody who is not aware of this one, let's say you have Gmail, we can actually see the Gmail messages on your Outlook on your desktop. So Outlook is a client, Gmail is the server. Now the client will connect to the server using one of these two protocols you are looking at, IMAP or POP3. IMAP is a better protocol than POP3. The reason is IMAP gives you universal synchronization. Like for example, POP3 is more like a download message. If you create a new folder in Outlook, it does not get updated onto the Gmail, a browser-based email. So synchronization is not there in POP3. It's more of a download. Whereas IMAP is synchronization. Let's say you are sitting in your office, you're connected from Outlook to Gmail, your Gmail account. Then you come home and you from your personal laptop, again you have installed Outlook and then you connect it to Gmail server. Now if you do anything at your house and tomorrow morning if you go to your office, the changes will be reflected. But if you do use a POP3, whatever you did in your house will not be reflected in your office Outlook account. Alright, here Outlook I am using only as a client. The server is Gmail server, but most of the times in offices Outlook is the client and the Exchange server is the Smdp server. That's what we use in offices. So here what I'm doing is I'm not using any client here because I'm not trying to access the emails, read the emails. My composites are going to use this protocol to connect to the server. So this is the protocol we're going to use, and the server is the outgoing mail server, which is this. So I'm going to use our encode.it SMTP server. So it's mail.encode.it.in. That's SMTP server of encode.it. This is pretty simple stuff. So encode.it.in. Let's see if I have to have webmail. This is encode.it webmail. All websites nowadays have webmail, so it's pretty easy to get a webmail. You see this one. I have an email ID on my server like anil.k@encode.it.in, let's say. Alright, with the corresponding password. I'm logging into an email of my own account. So I can read emails using any of these clients. These clients like Outlook, Horde is one client, Roundcube is one other client, Squirrel Mail is a client. The client is different from a server. Server manages how to send it, where to send it, whereas a client manages how to show you the messages. So if I read it through Horde, it has a type of interface. Roundcube has a type of interface. This is interface that I will get on my own server. Alright. Alright, so here, going back, that is the email server that we are connecting to here. So I'm going to give mail encode.it.in. That email server is running on port number 25. How do I know the port number? I just asked the customer care. I called my mail hosting provider. They give you all the details. Then the protocol, we are not using any SSL or TLS based protocol. The rest of the values are going to remain same, except to connect to the SMTP server, I have to authenticate myself. So I'm going to use another ID here. This is one ID that I've been using, one of my colleagues' ID. So this is ID with the password. Now what happens is our driver is going to use this username and this password. It will connect to the SMTP server. It will authenticate itself. Means the SMTP server cannot allow anybody to connect to it. The SMTP server will allow only authorized personnel to connect to it and send emails outside. So the authorization is handled by a username password. When you are practicing, you can use this username password. This is username is Deepika at encode.it.in. The password is encode.it123. So once you give these two details, that's it. You don't have to give any other details. You will also see certain parameters related to incoming server. Means UMS is not just for sending out notifications. UMS can be used for receiving notifications also. Means there can be an instance which is waiting for an incoming mail. If the incoming mail comes in, then it's going to move forward. Now the incoming mail can be sent to through UMS server, but most of the times we don't use for incoming activities. We'll be using only for outgoing notifications. So I have configured the email driver properties, basically the type of protocol I got. Then let's just enable the debug thing so that we know what is happening. This is the mail server URL, this is the port number, this is the username, password to connect to the mail server. Alright, now apply all the changes. So once you apply it, you're good. Now same way configure the Xmpp. And we are configuring the Xmpp, same stuff again, drop down, Xmpp properties. Now Xmpp, as I said, is Jabber protocol. Now for the Jabber stuff, I'm going to use gtalk. Now the gtalk server is talk.google.com. This is the server for gtalk. You can use any other Jabber server if you have, but I'm using the popular one, talk.google.com. This is the protocol where it's running. I need a username password, like, it's something like that. Let's say I'm connected from my side, you are connected from your side. If one of you are connected through gtalk, let me know. In the meantime, can one of you guys connect through gtalk? We'll be trying to send out some notification. So I'm connected to gtalk using this ID, weblogic.anil@gmail.com. That's my gtalk, and one of you guys connect to gtalk. We will try to send out a notification. So username, password, nothing else. You don't have to change anything else. That's it. Change is done, so applied. Now once the changes are done, you need to restart the server. Alright, so let's restart the server. Before you restart the server, you can actually update your adapter once. Ums Adapter update is not really necessary, but still sometimes we are getting problems because of that. So lock and edit, select your adapter, update it, next, finish. Activate the changes. Alright, so that's, I have updated that Ums Adapter. Now the final thing is to restart the source. So I'm going to restart the source, then we're going to test it. So let's look at the configuration again one more time so that you remember it. It's pretty logical. Educate the composites. So what we did was we basically added 2 jar files in the lib folder. Then we deployed an adapter. Alright. Then we configured 2 drivers. One is email driver, other one is a chart driver. That's what we did. Alright. Now I'm going to restart the source and then test it. In the meantime, one of you will log into your gtalk. We'll also be sending out an email notification. And give me the user ID, whoever you logged in. Projects, domains, encode DML. So let's say stop server. So server is coming down. You don't have to restart the admin server because we didn't do any configuration or targeting to the admin. That's theoretically it should work, but sometimes if you don't start the admin, it may not work. Means after only restarting source server, if you still see that it's not working, you may want to restart the admin also sometimes. Or if you have time, restart the admin also idly. Usually admin server does not take too long to restart. So this is source server, nothing is running, source server. Let's start the server. Start server, server 1. Let's do a tail on the file, tail fnf, source server 1. It's coming up. If everything is good, you will see it in the log itself that it's able to connect to the Smdp Gateway. It's able to connect to the Xmpp Gateway also. You will see it in the log itself. Just so keep a watch on the log also. Yeah, you see, this is your Xmpp. If it gets connected to Xmpp, basically I logged into what we say GTOC. These are all my connections. You see this? These are all my contact list in my GTOC. If you are not able to connect, if you give some username password wrong, you will see an error here, cannot connect to Xmpp server or that. Alright, your server is up. Now the final stage, test it. Can we give any username and password? How do we know which one should be given? For what? Yeah, you're trying to log into your GTalk, that's it. You log in with anything you want. It's just logging into GTalk, that's it. So here the testing notification. Now obviously why we are doing this entire setup is we want to be able to send out notifications. Now normally the actual requirement is to be able to send out notification from a composite. So we need a composite which has a notification sending instructions. We don't have any such thing, or we don't really need it. The reason is we're going to test it using inbuilt Weblogic SOA component. In SOA there is something called a human workflow or workflow application. If you go in here, let's go into the SOA infra. We're going to use an inbuilt application to test it. So if you see here, SOA infra, this is only testing. Our configuration is done, guys. We don't have anything to configure anymore. We're doing a testing, and for testing we are using the internally available application. If you see under SOA administration, there is a workflow application, and the workflow application has a configuration. So what we're going to do is we are going to ask this workflow application to send out a notification for us. Now first of all, what we have to do is we have to enable that this can send out notification. The notification mode has to be enabled. We're telling that it can send out all kinds of notification. You can say it cannot send anything, or you can say it can send only email. So for me, I'm saying I can send any type of notification. Now when I'm sending a notification, I want to be able to send this from address. This is an actionable address. This is a reply to address. Now some SMTP servers will not deliver your emails if your from address is not proper. So I'm going to put a proper from address here. Let's say anil.k@encodeit.in. You can give any address you want. Usually we will give it from the same domain as SMTP server. That way you won't have a problem because you're sending it from that domain. The reply to can be pretty much same as your from address. So once we're done, you can apply. So now we have an application which is capable of sending out notification. Now all that I have to do is send that notification. Now for sending that notification, I'm going to use an engine. So go into service engine, go into human workflow engine. So from this engine, I will send a notification to this workflow application. The workflow application will connect to the Ums Adapter. It will give the message to the Ums server. The Ums server will use this message and the driver, email driver, to send out the notification. So in the human workflow here, there is a notification management. So go into the notification management over there, send a test notification. This is what we're doing. Click on the test notification. You can send any type of notification here. So we're going to send it to some of you. Let's say give me one of your IDs who is online. All of you are online. Give me anybody's ID. Can I send it to you, Kalyan? Kalyan, what's the email? 1790, is it? Or let me send it to all you guys. That's possible. We can just come understand. Okay, let me try with your ID first. So Kalyan Rao 1723. Send it first. So let me send it to this. What type of message it is? It's an email one. So subject, let's say test 1 from SOA. This is a content. Test from SOA. Send it. Now when you are sending, if everything is correct, you will see send notification. If something is wrong, you will have this problem. You see this incorrect notification configuration. The configuration, it says notification mode is none, but we have actually configured it to all, which means we have to restart the server again after this configuration also. So server, the workflow configuration. This is all, but it's not reflected. So you have to restart the server for testing also. So I'm going to restart the server quickly. So this is the error that it could not send out. So let me stop the server quickly. Start it again. Okay, now check number 1. If you see this one here, the jar files that we have added are added here. Look at this message. Read that message. The following extensions directory contents added to the end of the class file. What are the directory contents? SDP messaging client.jar file. This is one jar file. SDP messaging common.jar file. Both of them are from lib of your domain home. Alright, so that's what our first step was. Then check it again. So our server is up. Now let's send out a notification. So here, let's refresh this page. Now going to show infra. Let's send out a notification again. Service engines, human workflow. Notification management. Send a test notification. I'll send it to Kalyan's email ID. So send it to Kalyan. This is Kalyan's email ID. Email. We're doing SOA test. Test 2 or test 1 failed. So we're doing test 2. So send it. You see this one? Sent here. Now go into the log file. See what is happening here. It's trying to connect to the host. That's what it's doing. Something went wrong. See it here. This is what it tried to do. And we sent a notification out. It's trying to connect to the host, mail encode.it.in on port number 25. There is no application that is registered with this address as an access point. Message will not be delivered. Oh. You see this one? I think this is a problem here. There is no application that has registered this address. The message will not be delivered. So I think something went wrong with my mail server. This is our mail server from address. We tried to send it from anil.k@encode.it.in. Authentication succeeded. We got a response code 552. Messaging exception. So the SMTP server somehow rejected the message. This is the error. Oracle SDP messaging driver, email driver. Unexpected exception. Can't send command to SMTP host. So it's a broken pipe. Now the broken pipe errors sometimes, they just get corrected after restart, or you may want to change the configuration a little bit. Let's try to resend it. Test 3. Again, it's trying to connect. I'm testing and looking at the log file. That's what I'm doing. Connected. Now we got it. Now it went. See, check it, Kalyan, and let me know. So this is the from address. This is the to address I set it. Kalyan, can you check it and tell me if it's you got it. Excellent. Anybody else wants to receive a message? Who else we have on the chat? Mukund. Let me send it to Mukund. Mukund.kanabargi. Are you there, Mukund? Kanabargi. Yeah. Mukund.kanabargi@gmail.com. We're sending email, let's say test4, send it across. Let's look at the log file. It's connecting. So trying to connect to the host. Yeah, we're sending from, this is to address. Check it and let me know if you got it.
Yeah, I received it.
Excellent. So our email driver is working perfectly fine. We are able to send it through the gateway, and our gateway we have used is the encode IT Smdp server. Now we're going to do the testing on Gtalk. We're going to use the same application again. The notification this time is going to be IM. You see, earlier we used email notification. Now we are using IM notification. Anybody connected to Gtalk? Or let me log in. You are connected. Excellent. So let me send out this thing. So test 5 from SYA to IM. That's this thing. So let's see. I've said send. It's not working. 503 error. Gtalk is not working. You see this one? This 503 error is basically something wrong with ID, or some settings need to be done on ID. Let me send it again. Again 503. I need somebody else to log in, or let me log in. Google Talk. I think certain settings in our emails are causing sometimes not to receive the message. Let's say I'm logging in with another ID, Anil Kintala, that I have. Flash car. I'm connected now, let's say. Alright. So now let me send it to that email ID. Anil. Test 6. Test 6. Now I'm clicking on send. Click send. I see, I got it. Now if I go back here, some IM chart we have problems sometimes. So let's say fresh message, send it across. I'm able to get it here as I am. So what else? Anybody else logged in? Message 1, send it. I'm getting message 1. So I got message 1 here.
I mean, I guess I read you to cheat up maybe that's why I was not receiving
What's that, Mukund?
it. I said probably I had not added it to cheat up. That's probably
Yeah, that's a problem. Yes, I think that's a reason. Yes, that's correct. We have seen that behavior also. It has to be between. You cannot send unsolicited message. Basically, we have to add your ID, and then can you add my ID here? Weblogic.anil@gmail.com. Add this one to your this thing. Add this one.
yeah, you are added now.
You added, okay. Should I send out a notification to you, or is it not necessary? Let's say message 3 Mokun dot Kanabarg, is it? Kanabarg, yes. So let's say message 4 I'm sending. Send it across. Go to this thing. Did you receive anything? No, you are not receiving. I'm getting a 503 error here, which means you are not receiving. So 7, let's say. Again, we'll send it. I'm able to receive only on this connection, this ID. The other ID I could not. On Mukunds. I think there's a problem with settings or something, or we may have to use another talk server or something. But you got the idea what we are trying to do here. We were able to get email. A similar way you can send out a notification using internet messaging also. So if you have Google Office Communicator, then you will be using the Java server or the Xmpp server of your Exchange server. All right. That's basic way of sending a notification. Similarly, notifications can be incoming also. We can send incoming notifications also. All right. So here. So the UMS basically lets you or gives you a mechanism inbuilt to send out any kind of notifications easily. All that you have to do is you're going to simplify the configuration. First you add the jar files, then you deploy the Ums adapter, then you basically configure the adapters. That's what you do. And that's all I have for UMS. If you have any questions, you can ask me. Otherwise, we are done for today. You can disconnect. And tomorrow we're going to see a very important topic, BAM, Business Activity Monitoring. It's going to be very interesting. Any questions? Ask me. If you don't have any questions, you can log off. Thank you. Make sure you configure these things once, especially the email should work. For the email thing, you can use the ones that we have used, the mail server mail.encodeit.in and the username password, the one deepika@encodeit.in and password encodeit123. Yes, Vamshi, I'll be holding some Weblogic class